Welcome to Off the Clock. Today we have a very special guest, Ntuthuko, who's got a very colorful life in the sense that when I think about you, I think about the work that you've been doing, very impactful stuff mainly in healthcare, but life-saving stuff. I think about the work you've been doing with health market inquiry. And also, I remember once upon a time when you were the chairman of RAF, Road Accident Fund, which you are often on radio, defending or answering some of the very interesting road accident fund related stuff. But, there is a person behind the robots, and that's what we want to be unpacking with Ntuthuko today. So, Ntuthuko, welcome to Off the Clock. Maybe tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for having me. My name is Ntuthuko Bhengu. I was born in Ladysmith, KwaZulu-Natal, many decades ago.
Long time ago.
I'm married to Tobeka, and I have two children who will obviously object that they're still called children because they're adults now. And I trained as a medical practitioner, but I really didn't spend too much time in practice. And I've spent most of my career really doing what I call really playing more on what I call the business and policy side of healthcare. Indeed, in terms of my career, I always think that it's been interesting in the sense that it's been really, really about healthcare, but I've seen most sides of healthcare in the sense that I trained as a medical practitioner, but worked in the medical scheme industry for quite a while. I also was chief operations officer of a mid-sized hospital group, clinics, and some entrepreneurial activity there in the pharmaceutical space, where we acquired a small company that was already trading in the pharmaceutical industry, but with my fellow colleagues, we acquired additional products and actually traded until we were bought out by an Indian company that specializes in pharmaceutical manufacturing from all over the world, but their base is in India, as I say. But the last few years, or maybe a decade of my career, has really been defined by a lot more policy work in the form of the health market inquiry, which Peter has referred to, where I was one of 5 panelists as appointed by the Competition Commission to look at the healthcare industry in general, to look at competition dynamics. And while I've always believed that I wanted to see all sides of healthcare, I could never have planned to have the view that came with being part of an inquiry that looked at the medical scheme industry, the medical scheme administration industry, the healthcare practitioner industry, hospital. The industry that really was excluded was pharmaceutical and medical devices, for reasons I can go into if necessary. So that was supposed to be 2 years. It turned out to be 5 years of what is really regarded as the most comprehensive policy review in healthcare since 1994. And the other policy involvement is that I'm now serving my second 5-year term as a National Planning Commissioner, and I am the health lead. And the Planning Commission comprises 25 or so commissioners, and we sort of provide research-based policy advice to Cabinet. We are appointed in our individual capacities. The only real politician is the minister in the presidency, who obviously is a bridge between us and Cabinet, and we work very closely with Department of Policy, Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. So those are really two significant policy interventions that I believe have been worthwhile.
So just let me interject a little
Sure.
bit. Being a commissioner, is this a paid up job or is pro bono? I mean, you do it for the love of your country, or tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we do get paid, but
Generously.
certainly not generously.
Okay.
I don't think it's more than what we earn in our full-time positions. But it's the kind of position that really shows you how complex governance is, but there's a lot of learning. If you think about it, it's probably about 24, 25 specialists in different areas. I'm health, someone deals with education, issues of disabilities, the economy, energy. So it's quite interesting, and one feels like they are contributing. Having said that, the last time I was employed by government was when I was doing my medical internship as an intern here at Natalspruit. But I've always considered it my personal national service. Because what do I mean? I've had more than 23, 24 years unbroken where in some capacity I work with government on a part-time basis. If one looks at that, for example, with the Department of Health, I was part of the very first cohort that looked at the single exit price. I was part of the working group appointed by the then DG Ayanda Ntsaluba under the minister, I think it was Minister Manto Shabalala, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah. And then science and technology, I was appointed to be one of the advisors in the form of participating in National Advisory Council on Innovation and transport. I was chairman of the Road Accident Fund for about 7.5 years, which should have been 9 because the term was 3 years, and I served about half of the last term. And
this is the rough work,
the rough work, yes,
which is very rough.
Yeah, I suppose part of what we can talk about is my role as a non-executive director. But the Road Accident Fund, a lot of people are surprised when I say, because for me, it's that's the one where I grew up as a director. It wasn't my first role as a non-executive director, but that's the one where I believe I really grew up. I mean, it was a very, very difficult environment. The Road Accident Fund has been technically insolvent for a long time. I think even at the time it was 20-something years already, but that was fine. But we did some things well, including the appointment of a CEO. And for the first time, the Redirection Fund had clean audits. In actual fact, about 3 within a space of 4. But it was always going to be a difficult environment. I say I learned because towards the end, there were quite a lot of issues, I think, and similar issues that most of our state-owned enterprises were actually facing. But I do believe that I was firm. I say I learned a lot because that was the first time my integrity was questioned. But fortunately, it was all there to see. You understand when that is thrown at you without any sort of justification and you're able to stand firm. Because I always understood, and one of the things I always said, when people used to say, if you are so unhappy, and this is what one of the ministers said, if you are so unhappy about the issues that you are raising, why don't you just leave? And my answer was very simple. Before I'm a director of the Road Accident Fund, I'm a citizen, a tax-paying citizen. Now, I am not going to walk away when I believe there is stuff that is just not right and needs to be fixed. So that's what I mean when I say I learned a lot. Prior to that, I had the good fortune of serving on the Nestle South Africa board and advisory board for, again, 8 years. And a lot more other directorships where it's companies that were associated with me. And it's been a good period. And I was one of the very early chartered directors to be awarded such designation by the Institute of Directors, which I also went on to be part of a director and chaired the certifications committee.
Good. This is exactly what you're trying to do: demystify, the leader in you. Because if you just listen to what you've been through, it's like you're a robot, right? A machine. Ntuthuko the machine. But we just want to get into the lighter side of your life, because you mentioned earlier you married with 2 adult kids, and they will object that they're not kids. But what do you do to chill, to relax with them if you're not sharing boards, not solving problems, not in the middle of controversy? I mean, I'm sure you play golf, you enjoy whiskey or other beverages. What do you do to chill with your family, to relax?
I always say that I like sport, but the emphasis is watching sport.
I mean, there's nothing twisted about that. You didn't say you like playing sport.
Look, I'm a big soccer fan. I'll say it softly. Kaizer Chiefs. Lifelong Kaizer Chiefs fan. And
tough,
it's been rough these years. Arsenal. I actually used to be Tottenham Hotspur.
That's wild.
I know that's how. No, but that's exactly what I'm trying to. How can you go from Tottenham Hotspur to Arsenal?
A big improvement.
but I know exactly when I changed, and it was around 1989 when Arsenal needed 2 goals to win over Liverpool, and we achieved that. But it wasn't so much the win. It was in Arsenal seeing a football club that really, more than any other, played black players. Arsenal has that history. I was already with Arsenal when I can't remember the year now, but where a record 9 players were were black
Felt,
players
yeah.
on the
There
field.
was a time when they filled that all-black team. So
Yes.
I remember the history.
Yes, so
I like this guy.
Yeah. So the issue is not so much a negative racial one, but I believe it's a positive racial one for the reason that representation matters. As much as I like Lewis Hamilton, I like Tiger Woods. I think it's a question of sort of. But the Arsenal story for me, it's not about representation. It's about also just merit. It was a white coach who selected those 9 players that day, and I do believe that we've been through ups and downs, but as Arsenal, we're on our way back, that's for sure. Real Madrid in Spain,
Yeah.
I had the good fortune of visiting the Bernabeu, and I want to go again.
When was this? When did you go visit?
2016.
2016.
I have a picture of me standing right there in front of all the big years, those trophies there.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to actually like Juventus. And for all these teams, I can tell you which player drew me there.
Okay.
Juventus, it was Michel Platini. And one of my biggest regrets is losing an autograph where on one program, I had the signature of Michel Platini, John Fashanu, and George Weah. And in moving around, it got lost. And that was when, before I decided to go into healthcare business, I thought I'd do sports medicine. And I was the chief doping controls officer for the 1996 African Nations Cup for the Durban crowd.
Okay.
So that's where I got the chance to meet and get those signatures.
Okay, when you're the doping officer.
Yes. That was also an interesting life story.
But I mean, was there any doping issues there, or just more the fanfare than the real work?
No, it was interesting. Completely fascinating. That was during Stig Morewa's time.
I remember Sticks.
Sticks used to like calling me the young doctor from KZN. I really was young at the time.
I remember that.
But I had already my post-grad anesthetic qualification. So there was
That's why you're into doping.
Doping controls, yes.
This doctor is dope.
Yeah, but it was the whole process was fascinating. I mean, you would let the match continue, and then towards the end, maybe last 15 minutes, there would then be a selection of which players would be followed, and you have the urine samples. And how it actually used to work is that, do you remember those bank, what do you call them? I mean, bags, you probably wouldn't know them.
Urine bag.
Not urine bag. The money bags used to be banknotes. We obviously don't see them much now because money is digital. So what would happen? Every team has got player jersey number 1 to 22. So for team A, you'd have discs numbered 1 to 22, and for team B, discs numbered 1 to 22.
Okay.
And then the point was, obviously in an open fashion, someone would go in, pull out the 2 or 3 discs, so which blind, of course, so whichever the 3 numbers that come out, those are the players.
So it's double-blinded.
Double-blinded.
Okay.
Those are the players on both sides that would then, as soon as the match ends, are then escorted to be followed to give their urine samples.
So what if you pick up players who are not playing?
No, that's fine, even if you're on the bench.
As long as you're on the squad.
As long as you are allocated a jersey number. Because then it meant it was really, you couldn't really predict anything.
Yeah.
So, and then I suppose players had been already playing 90 minutes with different levels of dehydration. And in some instances, you really had to wait for the urine sample because someone had been running and they're not ready to give you a sample. So they drink water until they are able to pass a urine sample. So it was interesting. One of the debates
Be quicker with beer.
But one of the more interesting issues was the whole cannabis thing. If it's detected in the urine, so what do you do? And remember that are still early stages, but we couldn't enforce that.
But I mean,
Because
you're not after cannabis. You just after
no,
other
but
stuff.
it was broad. It was broad in terms of what
Usage,
yeah, because the point is that we couldn't do anything about it because you really could, out of passive inhalation, have cannabis traces in your urine. So we couldn't enforce it.
Okay. So since you're the doping doctor, the officer there, when we look at it, when you say doping, we're mainly, in the sports sense, we're mainly speaking about drugs that enhance the player's performance. So other things like what you said, if you find stuff like cannabis in their system and you couldn't enforce it because of a different reason.
100% sure. That
so were there other things within, I mean, obviously you can't do heavy drugs and be an athlete and all those things, but also with the doping, you're trying to find people who are trying to have an increased performance because of said.
Yeah.
Yes. So what was let's say you had a sheet of paper saying, okay, these ones are listed in red are the ones that if they get tested for, they have to be whatever the consequences are. And then there's the other ones that you're not necessarily looking for, but if they are there would be their own consequences. How did that work?
Yeah, look, the point is that, of course, professional athletes, part of what they're expected to know is what they can or cannot take.
Yeah.
There actually is, I don't know if you know Mim's book.
Yes.
There's a specific one for athletes.
Yeah.
That they are medical teams supposed to educate them. You can't have this, you can't have that. And if, let's say, for example, you are asthmatic and you have to take the asthma medication, that obviously needs to be recorded so that it's known that you are taking asthma, but the medical you are taking steroids, but it's known that it's because you are asthmatic. So, but that must be disclosed and be in your medical file. But in general, one of the fascinating things about this is that it also depends what sport you're doing, what sporting code you're doing, where a substance can enhance your performance.
Yeah.
For example, we all know about sprinters. They have to have big muscles to generate that power
off the line. Yeah.
So steroids, among others, anabolic steroids, are used to build up that muscle. And then, of course, if you are a long distance runner, you need to be lightweight. But you must be able to have endurance. And that has to do, the most effective way is to enhance your capacity to take in oxygen and use it. I mean, if you think about doping in that example, you have to think about cycling scandal. Things like blood transfusion. So you're constantly getting fresh oxygen through red blood cells. It can be quite hectic. But that's why the medical team needs to know this, because, again, the difference is that if, for example, you are what do they call those who basically archery, where it's about aiming and you must be dead still.
The guys with the bow and arrow.
Bow and arrow.
Yeah, the
That's
archery.
If you have to be, because you know that in that case, if you are cheating, you want to be dead still. And absolute for you to maintain your aim. So that one is likely to use beta blocker just to be ultra calm. So the point is that some substances might be good for you in one code of sport, but not
for the other. So something I wanted to say, because you made very good differentiation between things that are very much the same but require different strengths from you, like the sprinting and then the long distance runners.
Yes.
Even though it's almost the same, just about the duration of the thing. So, but they focusing on very much different aspects of what they need to enhance to get the result they want. So when it comes to like contact sports, team contact sports, would that generally be the same type of, like, because you could have basketball, football, rugby, or like those types of contact sports. So is there still other deviations of, okay, because we're playing rugby and because we need this in these types of situations, so do also the different sports like football, soccer, rugby, let's say even say hockey and all those things, those contact sports, would there be anything similar, or those also just have different things that those people want to enhance?
Well, the starting point is that if you're an elite sports person, you shouldn't be on any substance. But team sport, for example, I mean, whether you're playing soccer or rugby, you can benefit from endurance.
Yeah.
So you don't tire, you're running the whole time. But within the rugby team, that's also different. I mean, you just have to look at the shape of rugby players.
Yeah.
There are some, well, I'm not very good at rugby, but I do know that there will be players like scrum halves and those whose game is based on power. Those are the ones that are likely to think about steroids or other muscle building. But that's not necessarily. There are those whose job is to sprint around the field.
Yeah, like the wings.
Like the wings.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, it all needs to be managed. Funny, I'm no longer really practicing, but because this probably would be deemed unethical. But I still wish there would be sports that just say, we don't care.
Oh, use whatever.
Use whatever. We just want to see someone who runs 100 meters in 5 seconds. just make sure your feet are on the ground so you don't put up a rocket. There's obviously I'm joking, but I really, if you allowed that, someone would run in 5 seconds and then they drop dead immediately afterwards. So that doesn't help.
I mean, I think, like, if they said, okay, the Olympics, but then we can have everyone using whatever steroids or doping.
No, we still want the clean Olympics.
No, I'm saying that, like, we'll have the clean Olympics, but then we'll have the other.
Call it the clean Olympics and then call the other the Olympics.
Dirty Olympics.
It's amazing how the whole discussion moved from the love of sports into being a doctor of sports and also being wanting to change the whole system.
That's why I qualified that
it would be unethical.
No one is there to take my license. Yeah, but one of the interesting ones as well is basketball. Because for a while I was actually I was part of the first South African Football Medical Association. We worked with Dr. Victor Ramathisele there. There is no better storyteller in sport than Victor Ramathisele, and I suggest you guys get him in here.
Okay.
I tell you, there is no better. So I was fortunate to work with him there. He had been my senior at medical school. But I also, when basketball was starting locally, I was medical manager for a short while. But I'm just using these examples to show just how much in the background that people would not necessarily see if you don't know. Basketball, for you to be a good basketball player, height does help, you know?
Yeah, no
So-
price for guessing.
Yeah, height does help. But now that introduces a different risk if you are part of the medical team. For example, all basketball courts at professional level, there has to be a defibrillator in case
Someone's heart
your
stops.
heart stops. But the point is that there is a higher association with a condition called Marfan syndrome, which has height as one of its effect. But it's a syndrome because it's quite a few medical conditions there. But in there is a heart condition.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, that's how you have to be ready. This is obviously not suggesting that every basketball player has got Marfan's, but in
because of
almost
their
any
heights,
sport,
it's gonna be
it's more likely to be an issue there. So, but it's gone. Sports medicine, you can tell that I wanted to do sports medicine, and the reason really that I didn't eventually, it was early. It didn't pay. Teams used to think they are doing you a favor because you really liked sport. I remember for me, it would mean I'm away from home every other week if I'm attached to a football club.
Part of the whole thing,
Yeah, but not really playing. But not really getting paid. At least now it's professional.
Yeah.
You can just do sports medicine and that's all you do. And I suppose of interest is that there was a time I was a very big Chiefs fan, and I remember when I was based here. There is the late Dr. Phil Maepa. We were on SAFMA together, but bless his soul, he used to live a bit further out. So from time to time, he'd ask me to go cover Kaizer Chiefs at training, and that was interesting. That's the closest I ever got to.
I remember him. He had a practice in Gwandebele.
Sabusa, yeah.
Sabusa.
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
some distance from here, yeah.
Yes.
Good.
So the whole story about Dumi Ngobese, no, it's not Ngobese, but he was supposed to have signed for Chiefs, and last minute he went to Orlando Pirates.
Sounds like a
Dumisa, all of that happened when I was actually there. If you remember Philip Trossier,
Yes, I
who
remember
came in and changed the whole
French
thing.
coach, yeah.
Tsiki,
Moki.
Moki, all of those players, they came in at the time that I used to be there and in and around Kaizer Chiefs.
It's a Kaizer Chiefs fan.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes.
So let's move on to something else that you do to chill, other than supporting Arsenal,
I play
Real
golf.
Madrid.
Bad
Play
golf.
golf.
Bad
What
golf.
handicap are you?
No, I'd rather not say that. I'm willing to say bad golf, but again,
Okay.
I start.
Got the general understanding. It's not so great.
No, I mean, my history with golf, a long time ago, I actually went through the lessons of trying to play golf, but the timing just wasn't right. I was at Metropolitan and I couldn't move to Cape Town, so I traveled a lot. And golf just takes too much time. Actually, my boss then, Bloom Khan, used to say, if you're good at golf, you're not working.
Stigmatized you a little bit. Reuse revestment.
It sounds like he knows from experience.
So that 1 year I had planned to start playing golf, it just didn't happen. My work required me to travel too much. I was in Cape Town literally every week sometimes. But you know what? Just before COVID, I decided that now I'm in a better place. I can play more. So, COVID, we're a little bit disturbed. But I've started playing again now. But golf just needs too much time. But to be honest with you, I really enjoy it. I like that I can play it as long as I walk. I can play. So it's a lifetime sport, played in very beautiful surroundings.
Mm-hmm.
And I have what do you call this? What bucket? What do you call it? Things that I want to do.
Oh, bucket list.
Bucket list. It has a whole lot of golf courses around the world to play.
Okay. Right.
So are you just the golfer in the family, or is you and someone else?
My son used to when he was young, but not anymore. But I can tell he's starting to think about it.
It's because he doesn't have time.
And no, now he does. No, but look, the point is I encourage. I know it's overstated, the issue of socializing and networking in golf, but it does play some role.
So you met very important people on the golf course?
Yeah, you do.
Oh, useful contacts.
That's not so much the primary reason is to play. But think about this. Of course, most people like I do, I have a group I play with. There are 22 of us. Where we play every Saturday, but no one can make every game. So it's probably 8 to 12 on any given Saturday. But when you are not playing with your group, think about this. Say you rock up on a Thursday, you want to play.
Yeah.
Then the likelihood when you go and book, you'll be paired with people you've never met. Now that's 5 hours with strangers, but out of that comes the networking that you're talking about, even in the 19th hole.
Yeah.
So I still think it works in that regard.
So I mean, just going back to your stories, the careers and places that you've been, you kind of like somebody who lived like life for two people, right? I mean, if I listen to your story, life story, what have you taken with you from all those places that you've been, be it as a doping doctor, RAF chair, health inquiry, running operationally the mid-sized hospital group, and being a substitute doctor for Kaiser Chiefs, your team, and all those things. I'm sure you've taken some stuff with you along the way.
Yeah. I always say I've got 2 books in my head about my career. I even have a title for at least one of them. But Pete, I think, you know what, when I had just qualified, it used to be that management principle of the day was that people just stayed in companies. But you know what? I knew at 4th year that I didn't think I would be a clinician all my life. I was doing well at school, qualified, and look, I still think healthcare and being a healthcare professional of any kind is still it's still fulfilling when things go right. But for some reason, by the time I qualified, I really was certain that I wasn't going to be a clinician all my life. And that's not me attacking that, not at all. The funny thing is that towards the end of my qualifications, towards the end of my internship, I applied for a job with one of the multinational pharmaceutical companies. It was a management job, and I remember the letter that came back says, "Thanks for your interest, Dr. Bhengu. Unfortunately, you are not experienced either as a medical practitioner or manager." The point is that as early as that time, I had decided that I need to look elsewhere. But also, the choice of what postgraduate qualification I'd go for was informed by the fact that I needed a field that would allow me to live quickly without difficulty. So I went and did a postgrad diploma in anesthetics. I grew to love it, but what mattered to me at the time is the nature of practice where you really don't need years to build up your practice. I mean, think about it. If you're a general practitioner, you're a physician, a surgeon, you take years to build the practice.
Yeah.
In anesthetics, not really. Nobody leaves home to see an anesthetist or anesthesiologist. So what does building a practice mean? Building a practice means you say there are 5 days in a week. I need to approach a general surgeon, an ophthalmologist, a gynecologist, ENT, and then obviously you factor in the emergencies after hours. So building a practice means going to surgeons to say, I can do this.
Dope for you.
I can dope for you. So it's not like you're trying to get thousands of patients to know you. You're just one-on-one. And it's interesting because I had come up here to write my college exams. And on my way back on the N3 to Durban, I decide outside of Botsilong, Botsilong Hospital, Vosloorus.
Yeah.
That hospital had just opened. And then I said, let me go in and say hi to Dr. Peter Matsike, the founder of clinics. COP. I go in there and I went to see COP. I say, hey, COP, Beng, what are you doing here? Remember, we had met through the South African Football Medical Association. So what are you doing? And no, I came up to write my anesthetics exams. And he says, oh, all right. Then he says, come with me. And I get there because the hospital was new. There was chock-a-block in theater. They did not have anyone to dope. It was that busy. Obviously, the timing as well was going to be. And the next thing, that was the biggest mistake I made because COP said, no, just do a few cases. And then it disappeared. I'm telling you, by 4 a.m., I was still
doing some
doping.
cases. Yeah.
And I never claimed for any one of those cases because I didn't have a practice number. But that basically said to me, Joburg is ready. And indeed, I came back to sort of do that. And I worked from mainly East Rand, which was Botsilong, the Greenwood, in Benoni.
Yeah.
And the Rand Clinic, but rarely, but now and then. So because you can't be too far, you choose an area, otherwise you'll spend your life driving the highways of Johannesburg. So it was interesting from that perspective. But other than that, so I was saying it's easy to get into anesthetics. Not easy to get into anesthetics, but to build a practice. Let me put it like that. It's not difficult. You just need surgeons, obviously, who have faith in what you do. But also, in terms of equipment, you really only need your laptop and maybe a stethoscope. Because what other tools you use is the anesthetic machine. That's a hospital equipment. So you also not spending too much on
Setting
capital,
up, yeah.
on setting up. So as much as it's relatively easy to come in, it's relatively easy to leave. Because when it was time to leave, that's what I did. I went around my colleagues and said, I'm about to vacate. I work with so-and-so on Mondays. Would you be able to take that? And then obviously the surgeon concerned would obviously have to be comfortable. But I worked with, for me, was coming out to work in Johannesburg with some of my teachers in surgery in particular. The late Mr. Luvuno was a general surgeon from Durban. And
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, he that man in terms of revolutionizing the management of amoebiasis. From the one time he was my teacher at medical school, and then the next he was my colleague that I was doing cases with, and Dr. Herbert Ngakane, who operated out of Glenwood, is retired now. Those were what I call my big brothers who really held my hand.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you have a follow-up question, but I'll give you a chance just now. Just, I mean, in terms of you know, having been everywhere, call it the clinical side a little bit, the sports side, the government side, and now, you know, your own business. It looks like you're very busy, yet you look so happy and relaxed. I mean, how much sleep do you get a night?
Not enough. Funny enough. Excuse me. But the thing is, Peter, it seems like a lot, but the reality is it's all healthcare. And that makes a difference. Because it means what I learn from one side of healthcare is not lost information. It just makes it easier when I'm on the other side. So I'm constantly learning. It's about managing your program, but the information or the expertise keeps getting reinforced from other parts. I always say that I genuinely believe there are very few people who have seen healthcare from the sides that I have. I mean, as a medical practitioner, but also remember that anesthetics, even though you are not, anesthetics requires you to know a lot about other disciplines. Probably far more than any other discipline in my view.
Yeah.
And this is where the lesson happens, because remember, your role is either in the emergency room, ICU, mostly in theater. But now any patient with any particular condition can be your patient in theater, which means whatever, whether it's diabetes, whether it's TB, whether it's any form of cancer, your preparation means you need to understand a little bit about that whatever condition, because it affects your choice of drugs you are going to use, because mustn't interact negatively with what they are already on. It needs you to understand the physiology, what's happening with their condition. And it also is about the positioning of the patient in theater. And that is what determines the anesthetic technique you use.
I see the connection. But just in terms of sleep, how much do you get? 5 hours, 12 hours?
No, I've
random?
never. You know what? I've never.
You don't count?
It's a long time that I've been able to sleep more than 5 hours. Okay. But it's not because I've got a lot of work.
It's by choice?
I think it's just habit. Okay. But I'm at the stage now where I can afford to sleep longer, but I'm just too used to not.
You're in the routine of what you're...
I'm in the routine. But how I manage it, obviously, I sleep late, around 11. Because if I sleep at 9, sure as hell I'll be up at 2, whether I like it or not.
Okay.
So I manage it that way, but also the other way is to... Fortunately, I've learned how the body works. If I need to do seriously deep work, my best hours of focus is between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. So if I catch a 2-hour nap before 10, I'll be fine. I can go those 6 hours. But the critical thing for me to survive the next day, the last 2 hours, I must also sleep, like between 4 and 6. Yeah. Then I can face the whole day. But if, for example, I also respond to these power naps, there was a time that I would literally, I remember when I worked at Metropolitan, I would literally, when I feel that I'm really tired, go in my car, underground parking, just 30 minutes. Nap.
With a tot of whiskey, just to relax you.
I wish I would just 30 minutes and then alarm at the end of it, and I'll be ready for everything. And I don't drink whiskey. I only drink wine, sorry.
I was like, you should have left it like that.
No, and you guys mustn't edit to leave me with that embarrassing statement.
Just drink alcohol.
But I actually started late. I was 32 to drink when I started drinking wine.
Maybe you're just ready that time.
I agree with you. I think it was a conscious decision I made, because I decided that, well, you know what, I'm going to try wine. And the one thing is that I've never been drunk.
Okay, just explain that you're drinking a lot of wine and never been drunk.
No, I didn't say I drink a lot of wine. I said I started when I was older. And it's a conscious decision I make, but it's true. I've never been drunk, but I do drink wine.
You just take one and go.
1 and 2, or 2, but not every day.
Okay.
I've not every day, obviously, but even weekends it would actually. But
someone once was explaining, who's alcoholic, and they were saying anybody who's drinking more than his doctor. So it looks like a lot of people can still drink more than you and they won't be alcoholic if you're just taking 2 glasses and walk away.
Yeah, but I take lessons from everywhere. I said I was chairman of the Road Accident Fund for 7.5 years.
Okay.
No, don't laugh, Peter, because the discipline that brought me is unbelievable.
What, just being chairman of RAF?
Because I would say, can you imagine if I'm stopped and I'm over the limit.
Yeah, it's not a good look, eh?
That's a
not a
front
good look.
page Sunday Times story right there. So that, I mean, I'm no longer there, but the discipline stays.
So
And driving.
it.
And driving. Imagine I'm stopped and I have a ticket. That's a big story. So that not that you don't have self-discipline, but it helps in just shaping you in a service.
Some people can do that role. There's a lot of stuff that you take away with.
Some people would have just gotten a driver.
Well, that's also true. Thank you very much for telling everyone I can't afford a driver. Yeah, no, but yeah, Peter, to go to the point that it is true that I am busy. I do well when I have a lot to do. But I think I tell myself I'm in the last mile now. That's why when I finished the health market inquiry.
What do you explain? Last mile?
Yeah, the Alchemy Health Technology is my company.
Okay.
That's the story of my life now. And if one looks at where I am, when I completed the health market inquiry, I wasn't really short of offers to come and work, as you can imagine. But I basically sat and said, what exactly do I want to do? And I said, you know what? I spent the last 1.5 years really considering what I wanted to do at the end of it. And I said, I'd look at emerging technologies in healthcare and see what's possible. And I invested a lot in teaching myself about blockchain technology, for example, in healthcare. And that's a story for another day, how we sort of worked on that. But then in the end, there was an MVP that had to be parked, minimum viable product, simply because I believe that the ecosystem wasn't ripe for blockchain technology, especially in healthcare. But I can see financial services is ahead. And that is how I actually got to do a presentation at Gibbs and twice at the Africa Blockchain Conference. Gibbs have probably now done maybe 4 presentations. Peter, you are also a regular at the annual healthcare conference. The one time I was given a slot for my talk, but then I asked, may I also talk about blockchain? They allowed me to in healthcare. And from that, again, Africa Blockchain Conference, I hadn't heard of it. I read, and there were about maybe 30 or 40 presenters. I called the organizers and I said, I see there are 30 or 40 speakers here, 90% fintech, the balance being maybe regulators. I said, but are you aware of blockchain applications in healthcare? They said, no, we know, but not really. I said, may I have a slot and talk about it? And that actually is how. So I've always been a go-getter. I've never believed that a career I believe a career should be planned. And I think that's what I've done. I mean, going back to what I said and didn't complete my sentence, that even though when I first went corporate, it was, you are with this company for life. It didn't take long for me to decide that that wasn't going to be my route. simply because healthcare has got so many facets, and I believe that what I wanted to be is an expert, and the only way to be an expert is to go
Protect.
through, yeah. But I do know that the cost to that was that in the early stages, I had relatively short spans, around 3 years, but it was critical in terms of foundation. So when I talk about the hospital business, I've been up and down the corridors. When I talk pharmaceuticals, I've been responsible for acquiring voluntary licenses from companies like Pfizer, Boehringer Ingelheim, Adcock Ingram, GSK. And when we talk about practice, I've been practice at general practice level, and I've been in anesthetic practice in South Africa and England. So, but what I could not have planned for is the suddenly being asked to be part of the health market inquiry, because it almost came at the time when it was just the right time to give me an overview that completes the picture I had.
So icing on the cake. So
yeah, but you know what is interesting about it? What is interesting about that? I had just gone back to one of the, to the medical scheme administrator. They'd asked me to come back because I worked there, went away, and then they asked me to come back. And I hadn't been there for long. Then the opportunity for the health market inquiry came up. Now, that was a bad position to be in, because I just knew this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I think the difficulty was having the deputy CEO then basically saying, when I said, I think I'd like to go, so, but you've just started.
Oh.
And, you know, Peter, I don't know where I got these words, because he says, I can't believe we've just had a good career path discussion. You know exactly where you'll be in 2 years, and you are telling me you want to leave for a government project. And I just said, I'm sorry, but this is my 2010. Those are the words I used. He never understood, but I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do.
Because I've always said 2010 and our hosting the World Cup is a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Yeah.
And too bad on my career of choice. My 2010 came months after I'd gone back, with all the guarantees in terms of what I was going to do, the career path, but I just felt it would consolidate my desire to be among the very best when it comes to healthcare. Because my ambition is that when Alchemy is established and running, I don't see myself running it for a very long time. Once it gets to the stage where it's established, what I really want to do is to go and teach.
So get a professional CEO to run it.
Yeah. But what I want to do is to go and teach.
Okay.
Alchemy gives me that chance to teach, because I've got a lot of very young, eager people that I'm teaching healthcare. But I know that I will be professor of healthcare management somewhere someday.
Okay, not thinking about theology or being a priest. or something. Teaching
Maybe, I
healthcare.
mean, maybe if there are courses that do a better job of actually combining this. I mean, I know you're joking, but
No, I'm serious.
But
I mean, you
one
look
of the
like
things-
you have it in you to
Thank you.
spread the word of God.
I'm honored. I'm honored you think so. I'm honored you think so. One of the things that I liked about the U.S. education then, it's almost like degrees could be combined in any way that really would work. I do remember I always remember this would be of interest to you. There were degrees where you'd start off medical degree and halfway through, let's say you started Harvard Medical School,
Yeah.
but never really see the degree through as a clinician. Then you switch to MIT to now do biomedical engineering. So you've got all the basic sciences, and then you go and invent
On the commercial side.
invent all of the
Medical
devices
devices,
that your company is very well known for. So I'm saying maybe
Maybe I like that. So you've been kind of on the sideline. Maybe you ask a question or two, and then I will take some fighting shots and ask Ntuthuko to ask us some questions. We've been grilling him a lot. So
I think the only question I have left for you is that throughout your entire career path, and it's been a long journey.
yeah.
Excluding what you're doing now, because I think what you're doing now, your own company, you're in a good position.
Yeah.
I think everything led you to that point, right? You would say. So besides what you're doing now, everything before then, out of all those different positions you were in, I want to know what was the most, I would say, enjoyable for you that you would think about, like, if there was an opportunity to go back and do this in some capacity, you would actually give it thought to go do. And the team can be Arsenal, to go be the Arsenal's doctor or anything.
So you mean even outside my career?
Even outside your career, it can be that. But also taking into what you've done already into consideration.
That's a very difficult one. If I had planned to stay in the medical field, I would have done radiology.
Okay.
There is a Dr. Tamim Goma based in Durban who I felt bad because he had done his best to help support me get a post, and then eventually I felt I'd done my part in the clinical space. But but it certainly would be in sport. If I did if I were to choose what I wanted to do. I have no idea. I don't think coaching would be for me.
you don't have in you to inspire people to.
No, it's just that I think coaching is a 24-hour job. Even when you are not at the game, you are thinking tactics. You are thinking about your next game.
Isn't that also
losing
similar?
is not a nice thing.
But it comes with the job.
It comes with the job. I wouldn't be coaching, but maybe owning a club. Actually, in high school, I owned a club.
Okay.
At boarding school. It was known as Cosmos.
Not Jomo.
No, it was inspired by Jomo, but it was funny because I was never good at soccer, but I established the team. And I remember the first day I went to approach the best players there, and they all laughed because they were thinking, surely you not thinking you should be playing on the team. And then I had to explain, no, I'm not a player.
I just own you guys, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's certainly it would be in sport,
Okay.
football in particular.
So, do you have any questions for us before we wind this down? Me and my son.
Parting shots.
No, it's really it's absolutely excellent what you are doing. I'm just curious to know about the origins. When you say this is what we want to do, what inspired that thought? Because I think there is a whole lot that's positive about this. So, what inspired, and what's the end game?
Okay. First, we have a video on the channel that you must go watch
I
to
know.
give the inspiring. But
Yeah.
I'll give the what
No, I
inspired
want the live
the live version.
response. Yes.
I'll give the inspired. My dad will give the end game
Yeah.
for the whole thing. So this whole thing started when about last year. I would say in winter, not around this time, but in winter. My dad was the word he likes to use is prolific with his social media and his LinkedIn and all that. He's very involved in his community. Thought leader, that's yes. He's very involved in his community. He's always putting out articles that are thought-provoking, things that are interesting to him, reaching out to an audience that really value what he has to say, about all those topics that he ends up speaking about. So the one day I approached him and said, Dad, because you're getting a lot of engagement on LinkedIn and you enjoy doing this and you've been doing it for a while now, why don't you think about starting something like a podcast or something like that where you can speak about these topics that you're so passionately speaking about online, as well as be able to speak about them with other like-minded people.
Yes.
And then he thought about it, and then it kind of evolved into something else. He was like, if I do a podcast, I'm only going to do it if you're doing it with me. Sure. And if we're going to do a podcast, I wanted to speak to more of people's work-life balance more than all the other things that he likes pushing on his socials that he usually speaks about, that he's so passionate about. But he's also saying, I want to speak about how CEOs and founders and all these people that have big impacts in their industries, how they, at the end of the day, operate as a person outside of their job titles and all those things.
Sure.
How do we speak to the person behind the title?
Yeah.
Does anyone ever ask how that person is doing, how they're feeling, how their day went? Because he's also identifies as one of those people, rightfully so. And it's like, people will be like, your dad is I didn't know this was your dad. He seems so larger than life. He's like big CEO. It's like everyone thinks, also people that are like him, like you, that they don't think you guys are real. Basically, that's basically kind of, this is what we're showing us, that you guys, you live life just like everyone else. You bleed the same blood that everyone else bleeds. So yeah, that's where things
genesis.
Yes, that's where it started.
Just the end game is see a much more bigger picture in terms of focusing more on the the work-life balance, or balancing work with life, looking more on, today you think about what we touch, the stuff that I know you, but I didn't know so much that you stuck with Kaiser Chiefs through thick and thin, like that. And therefore,
that must count for something.
It does, because it means you're very patient man, you're loyal. And also, I didn't know you're Arsenal fan, because I myself am Arsenal fan, and I see so much similarities in us in a way. In terms of the end game, I don't know if you've ever seen the book. It's on the shelf now, called The Diary of the CEO.
Yes,
it's it's probably going to be, we're going to do a book out of
Yeah.
this content, but focusing more on the easier side of people like yourself, not so much about the serious doctor stethoscope around, the road accident fund that stop you from drinking as much as you like.
The way he says it.
He adds drama to these things.
The market health inquiry that was so painful, but looking at Ntuthuko the person, and the fact that you saying you only sleep 5 hours at best, not because you can't, but just out of a habit, and a lot of stuff that you don't see. You're not so stressed. You mentally okay, and just bringing the uniqueness of every leader. Where you in my profession, somebody who's got a career, like you're a job hopper, like you never stick around long enough in the job, more than 3 years, like jumping around. But to see the logic in this madness, that you've been very deliberate about getting the experience of every little bit of healthcare and your life, which you're going to eventually teach and impart that knowledge to other people. That's the end game for us. Stories like yours are very unique, and people just sometimes think it's not deliberate. People are deliberate about living their lives, and nobody ever really spend much time on that. It's like, okay, how much you made, saved money at RAF, how much money you made at Medtronic, how much money you did at BD, and forget about the person. And indeed, I mean, right at the beginning, we said the whole purpose of the podcast, the sole purpose, is to demystify, the leader, the CEO, the business founder, and to see the human being in them. That's really the end game.
Yeah. No, again, thanks for having me. I look forward to.
So thank you very much for spending the time with us.
Thanks,
We
Pete.
appreciate it, and it's been a lot of trying to make it work.
Yeah.
And we appreciate this.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.